Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast. My name is Ian Brody and I'm the new CPMA Education Manager and your new voice for Produce Talks. We'll be sponsored again this year by Nature Fresh Farms in Leamington, Ontario. Big thank you to Nature Fresh for their ongoing support. A reminder as well that you can subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Google Play. We've been away for a couple months, but I'm very excited to get started with our 2019 lineup of episodes. From corporate culture to Canada's new food guide to regulations to exciting technology and innovation, we'll be covering all things happening in the produce industry from coast to coast. And before we get started on this month's podcast, a quick word from Selena to tell us about the Fresh Health Award.
Hi guys, I'm here to remind you about the Fresh Health Award. The annual award, which is presented at our convention and trade show, is given to a company that's encouraging the consumption of fruits and vegetables by either using the Half Your Plate program or the Fredgie Children's Program. To nominate a company, simply email me at skarkash@cpma.ca.
Today we're talking about corporate culture, how a great culture can lead to a competitive advantage that will set your organization apart, and about the inaugural CPMA Corporate Culture Awards. I'm very lucky to have two excellent guests on the show today. Barry Carlisle from Waterstone Human Capital, who we've partnered with for the CPMA Corporate Culture Awards, will be joining us later. But first, a conversation with John Anderson, Chairman, President, and CEO at Oppie. John has been with the company for 43 years, leading Oppenheimer on an ongoing path of growth. He's been president and CEO at Oppie since 1993 and has won several professional awards in recent years, including Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year, and has been named as one of Canada's most admired CEOs. Oppie has consistently been designated as one of Canada's 50 best managed companies and was recently recognized for having one of Canada's 10 most admired corporate cultures in 2016. John, welcome to Produce Talks.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
So today we're talking about corporate culture, and it definitely seems as though you can be considered a corporate culture guru of sorts. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm happy to be part of it.
So I'd like to start off with a bit of a high-level question. Corporate culture can be an ambiguous term. What does corporate culture mean to you?
You know, I go back in history here when in my earlier years in the 90s and stuff. I believe a healthy corporate culture is a defining characteristics of any successful company. Nurturing culture takes time and effort, but it pays off daily. Not only in the work life of the employees who exemplify the culture, but for the customers who experience it through their interactions with high-performing organizations. Mm-hmm. Corporate culture is a lifestyle that everybody, I believe, in the company participates in and builds together. It needs to start from the top, and it's just not something you say. It's something you do and live every day.
Yeah, corporate culture definitely seems like it stems from values. To put Oppenheimer a bit under the microscope, how do you define the culture at Oppie? What are the values at Oppie?
Okay, so first of all, we kind of looked at our culture and we said, look, let's describe it in a few phrases. And then I can give you the more detailed explanation of what that phrase means. But our corporate personality and brand promise, we come up with a tagline called "Expect the World from Us." Mm-hmm. It has a dual meaning. It means we deliver fresh produce from around the globe. But perhaps more importantly, we try to surpass our growers, customers, and colleagues' expectations with every interaction. So expect the world from us as a behavior is set by the executive and senior management and unfolds from there. And the attributes that we have aligned underneath it is having accountability of our people, having discipline and rigor in how we approach things, empowering our people to do what is need to be done at the coalface, making sure that your organization has an entrepreneurial spirit to it. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with people, you deal with integrity. You have open and honest communications. You are passionate for the business, and you relate to people with everyone with respect, and you embrace diversity. Make sure that you are solutions-based, and you work together as a team and provide leadership. So those are kind of the attributes of what falls underneath, expect the world from us, mm-hmm. promise, which is how we define our culture at Oppie.
Great. I read somewhere that you've led an initiative where you will go and sit down with people from all across Canada, all across North America. Is that correct? Sure. Yeah?
Yeah, well, I can give you a long process here. We basically have a thing called our whole strategic planning process is an evolutionary thing that's done over a period of a year. It starts off with a survey of an outside third-party survey of our employees, then obviously our customers, and then we have a group called the Champions of Change inside our company, and that group is not management. It is from each department in the organization and each location that we have in the organization, and it goes and asks direct questions of all of the staff. What's working right, what's not working so right, and then they get together as a group in Vancouver. Here, there's probably about 20 of them, and they go through all of the results that have been given to them verbally, and then the results that we get from the third-party outside firm. And then they come up with themes and issues outside of, through that whole process that they bring to me as strategic issues we need to deal with for the future. And then the ones that come out of there that are operational issues are then broken down and given to the vice presidents responsible to deal with those. So once that happens, they give that information to me. We have our strategic planning session amongst the executive. We then take it from the executive to what I'd call a planning implementation group, which is probably about 30 of the management team. We go through all of the survey results. We go through all the strategies and goals and objectives we've developed, and have them have their input into that. There we break it down into who's going to do what, who's responsible for what, and by when, to make sure that's enacted. And then I fly around to every office in the fall, delivering the message of what our strategy is, what the results of the surveys were, what we're doing going forward. Here's all our action plans, and people can see in that process the inclusion that they have, because we also invite someone from the Champions of Change to attend the strategy implementation meeting in July, to then share with them their thought processes and results. And then I go around, and then they have opportunity after that's all been presented to them to ask me one-on-one questions, and then we kind of have a social dinner together. So yes, it's a totally inclusive process.
Yeah.
And then now in February, we're rechecking up again on how we've been doing compared to what we said we would do, and another bit of a 6-month look at, okay, now how does the next 5 years look compared to what it looked like 6 months ago? And then how's our culture performing in relation to where we thought it was going to be?
Right. It really highlights that the importance of quality staff feedback, and I think really creating an environment where staff are comfortable and that they can share that feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm I get asked pointed questions, which is fine. That's great. That's an opportunity for them to do that, right?
Yeah. Awesome. So talking a little bit more generally about the produce industry, labor shortage challenges persist in the agriculture sector. How do you think companies can utilize corporate culture to attract the right people?
Yeah, I mean, people today, want to work at a company that's successful, that's thriving, that's got opportunity. What I would say is there's several things that help us with that. One is, to have been a best managed company for 18 years in a row is kind of unusual. That tells people when they see those awards that, this may be a pretty good place to work. And then you see you're Canada's most admired, one of Canada's 10 most admired cultures. Then you see the Entrepreneur of the Year. We've won twice, which is, I don't think there's any more than one or two people in Canada that have done that. And many of the other industry awards that we've gotten, and my personal awards, all get people the impression that, you're looking at a company that's trying to do things right. But having said that, our high-performing culture has got to be consistent. It's got to be evident in every interaction we have at industry events, at day-to-day transactions, community support events, public relations, social media. That helps, particularly impressions about our organization, an idea of what would be like to work there. So we use our social media, and we use a glimpse with Inside Oppie, give people a glimpse with Inside Oppie's walls. We post things like a day in a life, features of staff in a wide range of roles inside of our company in a typical day. So this doubles as a meaning in recognizing that featuring the people plus providing insight as to what it's like to work here. So it's very important, I think, the culture. It dictates really. People come to the front desk and they say things like, "Wow, it felt comfortable when I came in here."
Yeah. You pick it up right out the get-go.
Yeah. So that's how we use it to help attract people and retain people. And then, of course, when we're working in our organization, we do a lot of things to empower people that are working here. We want to hire people that have the right cultural fit. We have profit sharing for every employee in the company. We have shareholdings to probably about 40 or 50 people in the organization. Mm-hmm. So we also have the opportunity for people to give awards to other people for work that they've done, like peer-to-peer. It might be like a lunch or a dinner or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
So there's things like that foster people to feel good about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And then we have an overlying goal. We say, like, why do we come to work every day? What's the purpose of Oppenheimer? Mm-hmm. And so purpose is a big thing today. And so what we say is we're bringing fresh global produce home. So fresh global produce from around the world to people's homes.
Mm-hmm. And purpose is, I think, especially important and resonates with younger professionals and millennials specifically. So I think that's great.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of things we then promote internally with our culture, with the growers that we deal with around the world that give back to communities around the world, like, whole trade, which is fair trade. With Whole Foods, we have a big program with peppers and, X amount of cents per case. I think we gave $500,000 back last year to the community, U.S. and to Mexico. And wow. It goes towards education. It goes towards healthcare. It goes towards housing. And the people themselves decide how that money is going to get spent, not the company. The mm-hmm. people. It's given to the people. They vote on where the money goes and how it's spent. So giving back to communities and supporting them like that, in third world countries and things, as well as in second world countries, is another attribute to a good solid culture.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So how has the industry changed in terms of their corporate culture and the initiatives that companies have implemented?
Yeah, you know what? I would say in the early 90s when we first started going down, I started to recognize as we were expanding our business in a rapid way, and we were having to have more than one location. I think we got 18 locations or something now, and we're in 5 different countries, and operate and get products out of 28 different countries. One of the key things I looked at, I said, how are we going to keep the performance we have here consistent? I think we need to figure out, what do we want to be as a company? What is the kind of culture, I said that word way back then, that we need to have that's consistent, that will take us to the future? So when you go like a McDonald's to an Oppie in Houston or an Oppie in Tampa or somebody in Los Angeles or Santiago, Chile, that you get the same experience.
Yeah.
And so I said we needed to develop a culture. So I flew around to the offices and I talked to everybody about the kind of culture I thought we needed to have. And it was a different culture than what the company had at that point, because it was a smaller company that had, I think at that stage 1 office, maybe 2. And it was like and the industry was quite a lot of individuals, mm-hmm. Taking care of themselves, salesmen selling out of the back of a truck or whatever, right? To a very sophisticated business of infrastructure and technology and scientific research and product improvement and logistics of getting things from one part of the world to another, which were quite different. And so I would have said back then, and I did a survey, 95% of CEOs in the early 90s would have said culture had little or no bearing on your business.
Yeah.
Today, 98% of the CEOs to say it's critical to your business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dramatically shifted from it's really not a big deal to it's critical. And so I think things have made it change. Has been, of course, there's a change in the type of people in the industry, but the industry itself is much more sophisticated and much larger than it used to be in those days. Computers weren't such a big deal. Now computers are absolutely critical. You're operating from a lot of different countries around the world and from a lot of different locations that require, if you're going to get all that information delivered to people in a timely fashion in the right condition, the right way, requires a consistent approach.
Yeah, certainly with technology and how we communicate, it's definitely been a game changer in terms of corporate culture and creating those positive lines of communication, I guess, throughout a company.
Absolutely correct. And I think part of the reason is that because of the ability for people to get information and communicate today, you can't hide behind things you were used to do. You have to make sure that you're doing everything right.
Yeah.
And I'm talking as an industry, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything is out there and available, really.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, John, and thank you so much for your insights. It's been great.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to have been able to participate.
And now a quick word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh.
Hi, everyone. It's Peter Quiring here from Nature Fresh Farms. To build a positive company culture in the produce industry, it takes a special team of leaders who support and inspire their people. It means striking a balance between growing healthy food, healthy relationships, and of course, a healthy bottom line. And it's about creating a unique corporate identity. If you look at Nature Fresh, we're all about family values. That's why our farm has become home for so many people on our team. A positive company culture where people genuinely care about one another can completely transform your business. Never underestimate its impact.
Now we continue this episode of Produce Talks on corporate culture with a conversation with Barry Carlisle. Barry is the managing director at Waterstone Human Capital, specifically working with the Waterstone Culture Dashboard. Welcome to Produce Talks, Barry.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate the time to be here.
So before we get into the vast depths of corporate culture, why don't you give me the quick 101 on the Waterstone Culture Dashboard and the work that you do with Waterstone?
You bet. So Waterstone Human Capital has been around for 15 years. We have predominantly been a retained executive search firm, but one that's always been focused on the importance of culture and fit to the work that we do. And so two things about that. First of all, we started Canada's Most Admired Corporate Cultures program 14 years ago. And secondly, out of that, we created the Waterstone Culture Dashboard, which is an assessment based on the data that we've retrieved having run Canada's Most Admired for the past 14 years. So my responsibility is to work with clients to help them diagnose and then dialogue about their culture using Waterstone Culture's Dashboard as an assessment.
Great. And we've partnered with Waterstone to deliver the inaugural CPMA Corporate Culture Awards, which utilizes a smaller model of the Culture Dashboard. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, we were thrilled to talk to the Produce Marketing Association about bringing the infrastructure of Canada's Most Admired to their specific sector. And so we've got a modified dashboard. It's a little smaller, focuses on a few key areas, and we will use that to help adjudicate who the most successful corporate cultures are within the membership group of Canada's Produce and Marketing Association.
Okay. So what are some of those key areas, or what does the survey entail?
So there's a couple of specific points that we're going to be asking members as we evaluate their corporate culture. One is around the ability of leadership to communicate their vision and an effective culture within their organization. This is really key. We see this in a number of clients that we work with. Can the leaders in the organization develop a consistent message about their corporate culture? So we'll ask a question around that of the employees in the organization. One of the other questions we'll focus on is corporate social responsibility. There's a lot of talk right now about the importance of this to millennial and younger workers, but our data shows that it's actually important to everybody. So what is an organization doing to give back to the communities in which they serve, the partners in which they work with, and with respect to their environmental responsibility? So we'll ask a question around that as well. And then the other questions will really focus on the work environment themselves. Is it a work environment that allows employees to maximize their potential and allow employees to feel really engaged in the work that they're doing? The mini dashboard or the sample dashboard that we're going to be running as part of the CPMA Awards process.
Great. All CPMA member companies can participate for a fee of $499 plus tax, and all participants will be considered for the award to be presented at the CPMA Convention and Trade Show in April in Montreal.
One of the great aspects of this award is that the quantitative data as part of this dashboard is completely objective. So it doesn't matter if it's a small organization or a large one or an organization from a different part of the country. It's completely objective with respect to what employees are saying about that organization. So whoever the award winner is going to be that organization whose employees scored the highest in terms of their corporate culture of that particular organization.
So I'll provide more detail about the award at the end of the episode, but for now, let's continue our talk on corporate culture. So Barry, it seems that one of the biggest challenges that companies have is defining and articulating their culture. What are some tips that you would have for companies and leaders that maybe have not yet taken that deeper look at their corporate culture?
You know, Ian, that's a great question. I think One of the mistakes that we see some companies make is the leaders get together first and talk about what culture they want, and they try to impose that on the organization. What we recommend is do a survey of the employees first. You've got a group of employees there. They're working hard. They want to see the organization be successful. Ask them what their impression of the corporate culture is. Let's get that feedback and then see how closely it aligns with the vision that the leaders have. If there's a great gap between the two, then I think leaders need to take that data away and really ask themselves what message they're trying to communicate to their staff. If it's close, if the staff really represents what leaders want them to, then great. Try to codify that, reinforce that message, really get that culture to be a strategic competitive advantage for the organization. But most importantly, ask the employees first, find out what they think, and then try to work from there.
And how does this apply to small businesses? Do they have any specific challenges when it comes to corporate culture?
Oh, I think that's a fabulous question, and of course they do, because in many cases the corporate culture of small organizations evolves more quickly and changes more quickly than in large companies. So if you're in a small organization with 10 employees and you're growing rapidly and next year you have 20 employees, there's a good chance the corporate culture is going to change significantly as you continue to grow. So when we look at the small companies that we work with, there's often ongoing communication between the leadership group and the employees. There's maybe ongoing assessment in terms of how the changes are impacting those employees to try to make sure that as you grow, you're still maintaining the culture that you thought made you successful when you were a smaller organization. So it's being a little bit more on top of it, really listening to what those employees have to say, and try to embed that into some of the decision-making that you do as a leadership group. That's really, really important for smaller organizations as they grow.
And getting into maybe talking about the produce industry a little bit more specifically, I mean, there's labor shortage challenges that persist in the agriculture sector in Canada, and that labor gap is expected to increase. How do you think that companies can define and utilize their corporate culture to attract the right people in the produce industry specifically?
I agree in that's a bit of a challenge. I think, when we look at the business sections of the newspapers or online, we often hear about the great things that are being done in the tech sector. And there's this drive towards getting millennials, particularly university graduates, into the tech sector. But the reality is, if you think about the produce and the agricultural sector, number one, at its best, it's really tied to the communities that they serve. And this is really important to younger workers. So if you're talking about an agricultural organization that is providing local farming and sustainable farming, the sustainable agriculture, that's really going to appeal to a lot of younger workers and a lot of millennial workers. So let's make sure that that's part of the culture. And if it is part of the culture, let's make sure that that is getting out into the candidate community so people know that that particular organization is really focused on that. That's number one.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Number two, it's also an industry that is sustainable. I suspect 100 years from now, maybe 200 years from now, whatever changes are happening in the business community, there's still going to be an agricultural component. We're still going to need to eat. We're still going to need to feed the population. And frankly, we're probably going to be more focused on local and organic farming 100 years from now than we are today. We're certainly more focused on it today than we were 50 years ago. So reinforcing that message, how can you grow your career? How important is your career to what's going on in your community? These are great winning attributes, potentially, of the agricultural sector. We've just got to do, I think, a better job of communicating that message to younger potential workers.
Yeah, I definitely see the focus amongst millennials and younger workers, specifically around sustainability and climate change. And so I think that is definitely an area that companies in the produce industry can definitely focus on.
Absolutely.
And so how does culture influence organizational success? How does it create a competitive advantage, or what does it mean for the bottom line?
Well, let's say, there's so many benefits to it. Let's talk about a couple of key areas. First of all, from a human resources perspective, the importance of being recognized as a successful culture, and whether it's part of Canada's Most Admired Corporate Cultures or whether it's the winner of the Corporate Culture Award at the CPMA or what have you, it's telling the candidate community that there's been objective data and evaluation that a corporate culture will lead to success. And so part of being successful as a growing company is to be able to appeal to candidates and applicants who want to work at your organization. It's just fundamental math to say that if you have 2 candidates to choose from for a role versus 100 candidates for a role, the person who's got 100 candidates to choose from is probably going to end up with a better employee. So maximizing that funnel of interested in your company because they hear the culture is strong and successful and people-focused and develops careers, that's a huge win for organizations. So number one, it's attracting a healthy level of candidate competition. Once you get those people on board, how successfully can you develop them, keep them, retain them, keep them engaged? If you've worked that hard to get the great candidates in the door and working at your company, then it's equally important to work hard to keep them there and develop them. And we know statistically that companies that have lower rates of attrition generally do far better in terms of their rate of return on investment than organizations that are constantly turning over their staff. Think about agriculture and produce specifically, how much learning goes into being with an organization for a year or 2 years or 3 years and understanding the cycle of the season and getting that product to market. If you can keep that corporate intelligence there for a number of years, you're going to have a winning advantage. And we know that successful corporate cultures are able to do that over the long run.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Barry. We really appreciate working with you at Waterstone Human Capital. Thanks,
Ian. We're thrilled to partner with the CPMA on this great endeavor and look forward to many years of culture success as part of the association.
More information on the Corporate Culture Awards is available on the CPMA website or at the link in the description. The award is a great opportunity to not only have the chance to be recognized, but can also be a great exercise to put your company under the corporate culture microscope. Applications are confidential, and only the winner will be announced at the annual convention and trade show. Applicant window closes on February 28th. Thanks again to John and Barry for their take on corporate culture. Thank you to our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms, and thank you for listening. Again, you can subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes and Google Play. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.